we are now able to access more advanced modalities, including but not limited to my favorite, light language, to transmute, alchemize, converge, and collapse all of these timelines into one, to reconcile and harmonize them and literally bring them into completion. Welcome to Activations with JJ December 2024 Energy Update. I'm excited to dive into the themes for this final month of the year and can't wait to share with you what's been on my mind as we step further into this ascension journey as a collective. Greetings and welcome to our December 2024 monthly energy update. Welcome to all of my beautiful soul family who is co-creating from across the world. I am so thrilled to have you here as we navigate the energies of this final month of the year, which technically isn't the final month of the year because they messed with the calendar, but we're taking it as the final month of the year. I have so much coming through, and something very unique happened as I sat down to record this particular episode, and I would love to share it with you. So I have my little recording studio. I got myself all set up, got all the equipment set up, and I felt drawn to do a little ritual, something a little different than I've ever done before. And so I sat and did this little ritual, kind of brought in some light language, nothing too crazy, but it was different. I could just feel it. It was tangibly different. And all of a sudden, I felt as if my guides were inviting me to record this podcast outside of time and space. So I am actually communicating to you through energy that is more like a void space or 0 point energy. You could also see it almost as the future or a different density or dimension. And I felt like I was speaking to you across time, through time and space, from a different space, a different place. I can't even explain it. You can tell I'm struggling for words. But I want to invite you to take a deep breath right now and allow yourself to open to this new frequency from which I am recording this podcast, a frequency that has never before been infused into my podcast episodes. And as you connect with that energy, I feel as if I'm projecting it from the frequency of the 5D crystalline new earth. And again, there's really not a way to best describe this in English. It's a feeling, it's a telepathy. But this is what I was invited to do from here on out, is to transport myself before recording so that I'm recording from a different timeline, frequency, void, however you'd like to see it. I'm sort of navigating a multidimensional presence right now. It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. My inner child was very excited about it. It was like, oh, it's like we're broadcasting from a spaceship. I was like, yes, kind of like that. So I will bring in some light language, even though you can tell I haven't had any come in yet today in this episode. I'm feeling the Andromedan star mothers and Andromeda guides very present right now. So I'm just inviting them to step forward and support us through this new kind of co-creation where we are able to send these messages from different frequencies. I feel like I'm almost merging with a parallel version of myself, maybe a future version of myself, and that my voice is now combined with their voice, and you're hearing and feeling that new frequency. What we're doing with time right now is just incredible. And of course, in November, that was one of the themes. And so I think that's probably why this is coming forward. They're like, okay, now we're going to apply what you talked about in November. That being said, there are absolutely several new themes for December that I'm really excited to share with you. And the amazing thing is that over time, I have really felt so much convergence within my own business. I talked about this back in October with the combining of the Star Mothers Worldwide into my Starseed community. And all of that has just continued to unfold, where now all of the themes that I will be discussing today are directly related to themes that we will take a deep dive into each week in my community. So it's all tied together. It's feeling very easeful, very organic, how it's all unfolding. And I'm really excited to share these with you. So the number one monthly theme surprised me a little bit, to be completely honest with you. Last month, I talked about how the Galactic Akashic Records were preparing us for these new galactic templates. And I thought December would be like, galactic templates, we're ready. And they're like, nope, we're not ready yet. We're still doing something else. It's not that we're not downloading galactic templates. We are. But on a broad scale, they're still sort of waiting for us to prepare the ground, like I talked about last month. And so do you know what came through as the overarching theme for December? As a step 2 to the reconnection is the theme of reconciliation. Isn't that fascinating? And wow, have I got some incredible experiences to share with you, just to touch the tip of the iceberg, that have happened over the last couple months regarding this idea of reconciliation. And the interesting thing is, it did not say galactic reconciliation. It was just reconciliation. And so I was reminded of way back when my friend Anna and I co-founded Sacred Initiation Journey. And one of the biggest themes was reconciling the parts of yourself. And this is more what you can consider inner work, right? This is like bringing in, sometimes people say shadow aspects. I just say different aspects of ourselves and giving them all a seat at the table. No one is abandoned, excluded, shamed. Everybody has a role to play and a meaningful place. And so the reconciling the parts of yourself came forward a long time ago. But the same word came forward in 2 separate gatherings. Well, I would say like out in a community setting, with the galactic flavor to it recently as well. Another word for reconciling for me feels like harmonizing. And I'll talk a little bit about that later because it's connected to the 2, 3, and 4, the next 3 themes. But the reconciliation goes above and below, within and without. And the second thing that came forward was I read something written by somebody about the 8-8 portal, and I actually read it after the 8-8 portal. And they brought forward the idea of the galactic royalty coming together. And then you probably heard me say something in the last few months about the fact that I felt that the galactic royalty were coming together above and below. And some people are carrying those galactic royalty codes specifically to come onto the planet, to embody, to incarnate, and to reconcile with other galactic families. And I don't want to go into details now because that does have a flavor of duality, absolutely. But it's bringing to completion duality by reconciling. So not only are we experiencing the reconciliation with the parts of ourselves, but this is happening on a galactic level and probably a universal level that I haven't tipped into yet. So I'm putting this theme into your field so that you can know and understand. It is the next step after reconnection. Because what I noticed is that reconnection is not the final end all, know all of everything. Reconnecting can trigger things. It's like, oh, I remember that. Bringing up memories can, quote unquote, I will say activate memories, right? I don't love the word trigger. Activate memories. And sometimes there are unresolved issues. But here's what's cool. We are now able to access more advanced modalities, including but not limited to my favorite, light language, to transmute, alchemize, converge, and collapse all of these timelines into one, to reconcile and harmonize them and literally bring them into completion. And what I'm hearing right now is after reconciliation or reharmonization, that's when we put in the time lock. And if you heard my Pluto in Aquarius podcast, I talk about Nibiru came in out of the blue. I was like channeling. I'm like, okay, let's channel about Pluto in Aquarius. And all of a sudden, Nibiru comes in and I'm going, why? What? I had no idea what was going on. Then they just said, there's a time lock with the whole Nibiru incident. That means it's not looping anymore. And what I'm hearing right now is that there will be a third step, reconnection, reconciliation, and then there's probably a more eloquent way to say it, but I am feeling this time lock. Somebody can drop a word in the comments, somebody who's more of a wordsmith than I am. But you get the gist of it, okay? So absolutely, we are still in that reconnection period / reconciliation period. And this is all related to the Galactic Akashic Records, which is why during the month of December, I've actually opened up some time spots for one-on-one sessions diving into the Galactic Akashic Records. And then at the end of the month, I'm doing a group activation to help you access your Galactic Akashic Records. Now, what came forward was that I'm using those sessions to hold space for the reconnection and the reconciliation piece. Dun, dun, dun. It's always all woven in there somehow. So if you want to find out more about what that is, you can check out the links below. This will also be a theme that I dive deeper into in our starseed community, which is like having the podcast times 10. So you get longer like explanations from me, channeled messages from me. We meet weekly and it's a live Zoom gathering. So there's time for cute questions and answers. And also there's playbacks if you can't make it live, but we meet at 1:11 p.m. every single Sunday. So that is a really great place to kind of expand your knowledge about all this. And I'm excited. Now, the interesting thing is for this month, not only did I call in an actual, the theme, but I called in a set of guides to help us with that theme. If you're in the community, you will also have access to these special channeled images, which I create to activate us and to help us connect better to the theme. That's a fun one. The guides for this are the golden avians and the golden seraphim, which are dragon energies. The golden avians and the golden seraphim. I actually feel that some light language wants to come forward with that. So just allowing yourself to feel into their energies and how they are supporting the reconciliation. And my monthly channeled message and light language activation that goes with the theme that is usually published the day after this podcast is going to be from the golden avians and the golden seraphim. So be on the lookout for that. Subscribe, and also check the notification bell if you're on YouTube, because then you'll know right away when I publish that one. So let's go ahead and transition into theme number 2. This theme is very simple, and I connected it to the light language circle that I do every month as part of the community. It's super powerful gathering that we have all around light language. And of course, I am just finishing up my light language courses that I offered in November. I thought the September ones were amazing and powerful. And then we did these November ones, and the codes that are coming in, the access we have to new codes, it's all connected to this Galactic Akashic records and all these Akashic records that are opening up for us, which are resulting in more and different kinds of dialects and codes. But the weaving of codes is what's important. And I'm sure that makes sense to you, because the weaving of the codes is symbolic of the reconciliation and reharmonization of the timelines. And what I was feeling also is the weaving of the codes happen as we gather in these mission code activation circles that I talked about in a podcast about a week ago, where I'm piloting a new type of virtual gathering. Everybody that goes in there has to be able to speak light language, because the stuff that's coming cannot be expressed fully in English. So we all have to have our light language activated. Then I'm bringing in groups of 8. I was specifically told this. They actually encoded the entire offering with 8. They said it has to be 88 minutes long. It's $88, and there are 8 people in it. After I hold these 4 pilot groups, we will then do a final debriefing gathering where we all come together, and we've done the other ones separately, and we sort of talk about this experiment, these mission code activation circles and what they are. In my light language circle for November, I had a vision that these were going to be taking place all over the planet. This is why so many people are being called to activate their light language. And light workers and mentors, they're wanting to really ramp up our ability to speak light language, because it can transmit and activate things in a more rapid way. So you're probably wondering who the guides are as we weave the codes. Well, this one came out really obvious for me, and I've worked with them before earlier this year, and this is the Grandmother Weavers. The Grandmother Weavers also gave us a beautiful message in my starseed community a few months ago. And all of those, you have access to so much content if you enter that community, because you have everything from January on. I channeled specific messages for the community every single month. So there's loads of content in there. And I sometimes forget what I channel because I'm just tuning in and I'm like, okay, what did I channel? I remembered this really powerful transmission that came through from the Grandmother Weavers for the community. And they came back again. And they're really wanting us to weave together. And of course, this is part of that theme of coming into community. This is why community is so important right now. So that's theme number 2. And again, if you join the community, the second Sunday in December, we'll be diving super deep into that weaving aspect. And you can come weave codes with people. Woohoo! Theme number 3, reharmonizing elemental rhythms. It was a little hard to phrase that correctly, but then I realized, again, you heard me say reharmonized a few times already in the podcast. It matches with the reconciliation. And do you know what I was shown with this one? There were a few interesting things that came forward. I'm just going to list them off for you just to pique your interest, because I'll be diving deeper as we head into our planetary grid work gathering for December, and probably in a podcast, I'll be, explaining a little bit more about this. Here's what came in. First of all, the guides for this topic are the mycelium beings. And Mother Mycelium came forward. Just a beautiful, beautiful presence. I have channeled her before in a previous gathering, probably like 2 or 3 years ago, archived in my store. One of those playbacks in my store was all about the mycelium. And that energy is, of course, all about connecting and harmonizing. The other wording that came in was vortexes. Vortexes are very, very important right now. They're part of this convergence energy, this timeline collapsing energy, and we are being invited to know and understand how they function to a greater degree. Some of you are vortex, the word hasn't come. I don't feel like it's a vortex keeper, but you're an expert on vortexes. You know who you are. Maybe you're already working with them with grid work. If you are, drop in the comment section or come into the community and share with us your expertise about vortexes. I'm going to bring in some light language. For some reason, I feel so I'm feeling a lot of air, like air elementals. Yeah, this matches with what I already had seen in my mind's eye. I was seeing like a lot of tornadoes, dirt devils, like these natural phenomenon that happen. Of course, a hurricane is like a vortex. And they showed me something really fascinating. Do you know that if you go on your Google map on your phone, the satellite image will show you the currents of the ocean? And one day I was trying to switch the view on the satellite image and I accidentally switched it to that. And I was so fascinated that you could see all those little arrows indicating where all the currents were headed. And then I had to, when I came up with this theme, because I felt air currents and water currents, I am not an expert in any of that. So I actually had to Google it. And there's a link to a Khan Academy lesson about this in case you want to brush up on all of that. I'll be sharing it with my community because when we do our planetary grid work gathering, I think we're going to need to understand things a little bit more. In fact, I've actually been feeling that education piece is so important, that we can come in prepared and educated when we're doing grid work. Really balancing out our approach with the masculine and the feminine side. So this whole idea of the air currents and the water currents came in. And I'll be completely honest with you. I don't actually know everything that's going to come forward yet, but I'm excited. I'm glad I got at least the theme for the planetary grid work this month. So that's like the overarching theme for planetary grid work. I should mention that. All of these themes are related to, sub-themes. But let me tell you the last one. Of course, I got this article or this Instagram post come up, and some of you may already know about this. I wasn't paying attention. I know the North Pole moves, but they were specifically talking about how the North Pole was moving east quite a bit right now. And I don't want to exaggerate because it could have just been, the article title that was clickbait or whatever. But it was like, this hasn't happened in a long time. Like this hasn't ever happened to this degree. So for those of you who are experts on the North Pole, please drop in with all of your information. However, it's something to put into your field. I know other channelers have talked about this. We talked about the fact that the poles are like they were distorted at one point. And so we're kind of returning to the original anyhow. So we'll see what happens with that. I think it's connected to all kinds of things that have been dropping in for me lately. The North Pole and the Polarian energy. So that North Star Polarian energy is tied to theme number 4. So we're at theme number 4. This is the last one for the month. Again, I've got 4 themes because I have 4 gatherings each month. And I was like, I'm just literally going to dive deep into each of these. Now, if you would like to attend our 4th Sunday gathering every month, it is free to the public. That's our Starseed Connection Circle. It is a huge gathering of starseeds from across the world. And we cover many topics because I'll do a broad topic in the main room and then we divide into smaller breakout rooms that are focused on specific things. And that was just like me going, okay, how can we multitask? Like, how can we cover all these topics? Do you know what was interesting? In the first one that we did, When we came out of the breakout rooms, I sat there and I was like, oh my gosh, I think all of my multidimensional selves attended all the breakout rooms because I felt super expanded. And it was almost like I had this sense that I had been participating energetically in all of them. It was so cool. That's what's been happening in all of my gatherings with the breakout rooms, because it's like it's a fractalization of the energy of the space and an expansion. And then we come back and we contract into the main room again to integrate everything. Okay, I have a whole theory about that. As you can see, it's exciting to me. The things that I've been learning about running Zoom meetings and energy and all of that. All right, so theme number 4. This one is connected to the Starseed Connection Circle. And this month, I have the circle, which is free. It's got a solstice theme, and it's happening on solstice. So if you want to join the party and come and join us it's winter solstice for some, summer solstice for others, that is the place you want to be. And you can sign up through the link below. Here are the guides that came forward for the solstice. And there's some themes that were very fascinating that popped in as well. Horus and the Solarian Council. The Solarian Council. All right? This came through to a certain degree in one of the final podcast episodes, YouTube activations for November, where it was the Aquarian solar dragons. And that energy is coming through this Solarian Council. It also came in my Pluto and Aquarius podcast as well. Horus, I get why Horus is there, but I have yet to explore. So I'm really excited of what unfolds this month. I'm thinking I'll probably be bringing through some additional channeled messages here on the podcast and potentially in the community and the gatherings. But I thought I would just put that in your awareness. Now, if you look up Horus and the symbolism of Horus, all of this will make sense. But the idea with the solstice, and because I'm experiencing winter solstice, this is probably a little bit more applicable for me. But it is rebirth. It is death and rebirth, the cycles of death and rebirth. But it's rebirth, renewal, and a return of the light. And do you know what other really fascinating theme came in? Walk-ins and walkouts. It's a theme right now. Have you been hearing a lot of channelers talk about how many souls are going to exit the planet? I think it's mostly through walkouts and walk-ins. That's what I think. That's my theory. And that's why I believe this is one of the themes, because the death and rebirth. I think you're going to need to understand how walk-ins and walkouts happen, why they happen, how they happen. So I have a few ideas percolating on a podcast episode, a deep dive into walk-ins and walkouts. And if you're not already subscribed to my email list, make sure you click on that link in the show notes to subscribe, because I've been sending out emails with tons of information that's just been dropping in. And I'm like, I don't know where to send this. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to create these emails. And they're sort of like mini energy updates that pertain to that particular time. I've also been sharing a little bit about my own personal story, some of my own personal reflections. Writing is actually like my original, most comfortable form of communication. I don't know how many of you know this, but I also, when I first started producing content and channeling, it was all through a blog. Yeah, it was all through a blog. And I called it Activation Key Codes. Activation Key Codes. I still remember those words dropped right in for me. So I love being able to share these emails every week and kind of give you more information, go a little bit deeper. Okay, so if you want more info about the walk-ins, walkouts, stay tuned. All right, I'm going to take a deep breath here. There's like a couple more little mini themes with this theme number 4, this solstice theme. So galactic reconciliation and connection, obviously I already said that, but we'll talk about it a little bit more in the starseed connection circle on Solstice. And then here's another interesting one that came in. Deepening ties with Orion, Polarian, and Antarian star families. Are any of you out there connected to the Orions, the Polarians, or the Antarians? Or when I say that, are you feeling a little ping? They aren't the most talked about. Probably Orion a little more than the others. So in essence, they're sort of rare. And that was just, it came straight in. It was like, okay, we're going to talk about this. I have occasionally brought forward their frequencies through light language, through some channeled messages, and I know they've come into gatherings before over this last 3-4 years. So I'm excited to see what comes forward as I lean into that topic for the month. All of this, I plan on at least touching a little bit more on in my community or in the podcast. If you're part of both, you will not miss anything. You won't miss anything. Anything that I channel or that comes through will be shared through those two different platforms. Yes, family, we have arrived to the end. Be on the lookout for that podcast, that light language transmission and channeled message from the Golden Seraphim, and also the Golden Avians. And also, I didn't mention this, but the Solarian energy is coming through for those. And take a deep breath. I've got the Andromedan star mothers who came in at the beginning. Oh, and just dropping back into that energy that was coming forward as I opened the podcast and explained to you that I'm broadcasting live, not live, I'm broadcasting asynchronously, but without time, I'm broadcasting live from a different dimension. Dun, dun, dun. Just allowing yourself to feel that energy. Bringing this podcast episode to a close. I'm sending you love and reminding you that you are love. And also that I am you and you are me and we are we. Here's to an incredible month of December. And I'm sure I will see you again soon. Much love.